What would you do if those you trusted most revealed their true faces the moment you turned your back? This story will make you question everything you know about loyalty and love. The rain tapped softly against the tall glass windows of the Carter estate, but inside, there was no warmth, only silence. Benjamin Carter, a billionaire known across Brooksville for his vast real estate empire, sat alone in his massive living room, dressed in a plain grey robe, staring at a faded photograph of his wedding day. His once proud and confident face was now lined with confusion and sorrow. He had everything: money, success, a grand estate. But why did everything feel so empty? His wife, Vanessa, only smiled when he gave her new jewelry. His daughter, Olivia, only called him daddy when she needed money for trips abroad. His son, Henry, barely spoke unless it was about the family business. But tonight, something had changed. Something had cracked. Just hours ago, Benjamin had returned from the hospital. The doctor, Dr. Michael Hayes, had assured him he was perfectly healthy. Yet during his checkup, he overheard something that shattered his spirit. Standing just behind a curtain in the hospital hallway, he heard his wife's voice, light and careless, on a phone call. "If this man dies now, I swear my real life will finally begin." Benjamin's heart seemed to freeze in his chest. He stood paralyzed, his legs weak. Did he hear that right? His wife, the woman he had loved and trusted for years, was wishing for his death. The air felt colder. His fingers trembled as he walked away, leaving the hospital without another word. Back in the vast emptiness of his grand living room, Benjamin couldn't shake the echo of Vanessa's words. He tried to tell himself it was a misunderstanding, a cruel joke, but deep down, he knew better. He saw it now: the coldness in Vanessa's eyes, the distance in her smile, the way his children only seemed to notice him when they wanted something. But he needed to know for sure. He needed to see their true colors without them knowing he was watching. That night, as the thunder rumbled outside, Benjamin picked up his phone and called his trusted driver and old friend, Samuel Johnson. Samuel had been with him since the beginning, loyal, honest, the one person he could count on. "Sam." Benjamin's voice was low, almost a whisper. "I need your help." "Of course, sir." "Always," Samuel replied without hesitation. "I want to disappear," Benjamin said, his voice trembling. "I want to see what my family does when I'm gone." There was a long silence on the other end. Then Samuel's voice came back, cautious but steady. "This is no small matter, Mr. Carter." "I know," Benjamin whispered. "But I'd rather die a fake death than keep living a fake life." Benjamin Carter sat in the back seat of his sleek black Mercedes, rain pattering against the tinted windows as they drove through the quiet streets of Brooksville. Beside him, Samuel Johnson, his loyal driver and old friend, gripped the steering wheel tightly. The silence between them was thick, but Benjamin finally broke it. "Sam, I need your help," Benjamin whispered, his voice barely louder than the rain. "I want to know the truth about my family." Samuel glanced in the rearview mirror, his eyes meeting Benjamin's. "What do you mean, sir? I heard Vanessa, my own wife, laughing on the phone at the hospital," Benjamin continued, his voice trembling. "She said if I died, her real life would finally begin. I need to know if it's true." Silence hung heavy. Then Samuel sighed. "You want me to watch them?" "Not just watch," Benjamin replied, leaning forward. "I want to fake my death. I want to see who they really are when they think I'm gone." Samuel's grip on the wheel tightened. "Sir, that's not a small request. You're talking about changing everything." "I know," Benjamin said, his voice heavy with pain. "But I would rather live knowing the truth than die in a lie." By morning, the plan was set. Samuel contacted Dr. Michael Hayes, a man who owed his life to Benjamin after a near-fatal accident years ago. Dr. Hayes listened intently, then nodded, It's risky, but I'll help you. People show their true colors when they think you're no longer watching. Within days, the news spread like wildfire across Brooksville. Billionaire Benjamin Carter dies of sudden heart attack. The local news channels, radio stations, and social media were flooded with the shocking announcement. Condolences poured in, and the Carter estate was draped in black ribbons. But behind the closed doors of the estate, the true faces began to emerge. Vanessa, in a black lace dress, stared at her reflection in the grand mirror, a faint smile curling at her lips. "Finally," she whispered, touching her diamond earrings. Her best friend, Laura, who had come to offer support, frowned. "Vanessa, your husband just died." "Spare me the act, Laura," Vanessa scoffed, dabbing fake tears under her eyes. "I've been a prisoner in this mansion for too long. Now I'm free." Downstairs, Olivia posted a black and white photo of Benjamin on social media with the caption, "R.I.P. Daddy, forever in our hearts." But her fingers moved quickly, listing Benjamin's vintage Rolex for sale online. Henry, meanwhile, was in the study, feet up on his father's desk, speaking on the phone. "Yes, I know the will hasn't been read yet," he muttered, a slight smirk on his face. "But let's be realistic, I'm the first son. The company is mine." Miles away, in a small, dimly lit room in Fairfield Village, Benjamin Carter sat with Samuel and Dr. Hayes, watching everything unfold on a hidden camera feed. Benjamin's hands trembled as he saw Vanessa sipping red wine, raising her glass in a mock toast. "To freedom," she whispered to herself, laughing softly. Benjamin leaned forward, his voice choked with disbelief. They're celebrating my death." Samuel placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Now you know, sir. But what will you do?" Benjamin's eyes hardened. "We keep watching. I want to see how far they'll go." The rain had stopped, but the storm inside Benjamin Carter's heart had only begun. In a dimly lit room in Fairfield Village, he sat beside Samuel Johnson and Dr. Michael Hayes, watching the screen in front of them. It displayed a live feed from hidden cameras inside his own mansion, the Carter estate. His fingers trembled slightly as he leaned forward, watching the faces of his family. Vanessa Carter, his wife, stood in front of a grand mirror in their master bedroom, adjusting her black dress. But there was something off. She wasn't crying. Instead, she smiled. A chilling, satisfied smile that twisted the knife in Benjamin's heart. "So we're finally free," Vanessa's voice was clear as she spoke into her phone. "No more pretending. No more living like his shadow." The person on the other end chuckled. A familiar voice, William Turner, the family's financial director and Vanessa's secret lover. "You're sure he's gone?" William's voice echoed. "Of course." Sudden cardiac arrest. "It's done. We're finally free, William." Vanessa laughed, a sound Benjamin had once adored, now tainted with betrayal. Beside Benjamin, Samuel's face darkened. "Sir, let it play," Benjamin whispered, his voice barely steady. Downstairs, Olivia Carter posted a black and white photo of Benjamin on social media, the caption reading, "Rest in peace, Daddy. Forever in our hearts." But her expression was far from grieving. She was laughing with friends, scrolling through shopping apps. Henry Carter, Benjamin's son, was even more direct. Sitting in the study, he called the family lawyer. "Yes, Mr. Price, I understand the will can't be read yet, but I am the first son." "You know where this is going." "Sir," Samuel whispered, "this is worse than we thought." Benjamin clenched his fists. "I trusted them. My own family." The camera feed shifted, showing the front of the house where guests began arriving for the wake. Vanessa greeted them, dabbing fake tears with a black lace handkerchief, her voice soft and sorrowful. "Yes, it's a tragedy. We miss him so much." "Tragedy," Benjamin whispered. "I'm not even cold yet, and they're celebrating." "Keep watching," Dr. Hayes urged. "You need to see the truth." Suddenly, the master bedroom camera caught something shocking, Vanessa opening the door for William Turner. The two embraced, sharing a long, passionate kiss. William raised a glass of red wine. "To freedom, Vanessa. To our future," she whispered, her voice dripping with desire. Benjamin's heart ached, his vision blurred with tears. "That's enough." But Samuel shook his head. "No, sir. They need to bury you first. Only then will you see who they truly are." As the night continued, the hidden cameras captured Olivia bargaining for Benjamin's antique watch, and Henry calling for the transfer of company shares into his name. Each moment was a dagger to Benjamin's soul. But in that darkness, a small light flickered. An old woman, Mrs. Grace Williams, sat outside under the estate's old oak tree, her wrinkled hands folded in prayer. "Lord, reveal the truth. Bring justice for the innocent." "Who is she?" Benjamin asked, leaning closer. "Mrs. Grace Williams," Samuel explained. "Your late mother's old friend. She always said she'd pray for you." Tears slipped down Benjamin's cheeks. "A stranger cares more than my own family." Dr. Hayes placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes, sir, you have to die to see who's truly alive." Benjamin's gaze returned to the screen, his heart shattered, but his resolve hardening. "They want me dead? Then I'll give them the death they deserve." The rain had washed away the dust from the Carter estate's iron gates, but it couldn't wash away the betrayal Benjamin Carter had witnessed. In a dimly lit room of Fairfield Village, Benjamin leaned forward, his eyes glued to the screen. He had seen enough. His family, Vanessa, Olivia, and Henry, had shown their true colors. "Dr. Hayes," Benjamin said, his voice steady but cold, "are we prepared for the next step?" Dr. Michael Hayes nodded. "Everything is ready, Mr. Carter. We have the false death certificate and the news has already spread." "The world believes you're dead." Samuel Johnson, his loyal driver and longtime friend, stood nearby, watching Benjamin's face closely. "Sir, are you sure about this?" "I have never been more certain," Benjamin replied, a flicker of pain in his eyes. "They celebrated my death, Sam. They rejoiced while I was barely gone. I want to see just how deep their betrayal goes." Within hours, the Carter estate became a place of mourning on the surface, but inside, it was a festival of greed. Vanessa Carter, dressed in an elegant black dress, dabbed fake tears under her eyes, while her lover William Turner whispered in her ear. "How soon can we access the accounts?" he asked, a sly smile on his face. "Patience, William," Vanessa whispered back. "The lawyer says we must wait a few days for the will to be read. But soon, it will all be ours." Upstairs, Olivia was taking selfies in front of her father's portrait, posting a dramatic "Rest in peace, Daddy" message online. But in her room, she was packing designer shoes and jewelry she planned to sell. Henry, meanwhile, was in his father's study, talking on the phone. "Yes, I'm the new head of Carter Real Estate. Start preparing the documents. I want control over the accounts." Back in the dimly lit room in Fairfield Village, Benjamin watched all of this through the hidden cameras he had installed. His face remained expressionless, but his knuckles turned white as he gripped the chair. "Sir," Samuel whispered, "they don't even pretend to care." "No, they don't," Benjamin muttered. "But it's time for them to see what loss really means." Over the next few days, the plan went into full effect. The news of Benjamin's sudden death from a heart attack spread like wildfire. The obituary was published, and a private funeral was arranged. Vanessa, Olivia, and Henry played their roles perfectly, grieving in public, but celebrating in private. But behind the scenes, Dr. Hayes prepared the legal documents. Benjamin had officially changed his will just before his death. The primary beneficiary, Daniel Brooks, the young man who had shown Benjamin true kindness in his darkest days. "They will fight this," Dr. Hayes warned. "Vanessa and the children will not give up without a war." "Let them," Benjamin replied, his voice steady. "They need to learn that true value cannot be stolen." Samuel placed a reassuring hand on Benjamin's shoulder. "And you'll be right here watching." "Yes," Benjamin whispered, his eyes fixed on the screen. Right here. And they won't know I'm watching until it's too late. The air was thick with the scent of fresh flowers and burning candles in the grand hall of the Carter estate. Black velvet ribbons draped over the doorways, and a massive portrait of Benjamin Carter, smiling confidently, hung at the center of the room. Family, friends, and business associates filled the room, their faces somber, their whispers hushed. Vanessa Carter stood at the front, dressed in a flowing black gown, her face a perfect mask of grief. But beneath the veil of tears, there was a faint smile, a flicker of relief. To everyone around, she was the grieving widow, but in her heart, she celebrated her newfound freedom. Beside her, Olivia stood with a delicate lace handkerchief, dabbing at dry eyes, while Henry was already in a corner, whispering on his phone, likely planning his next move with the family lawyer. The morning was just a performance. The pastor stepped forward, his voice calm and measured. We are gathered here today to remember the life of Benjamin Carter, a man of great wealth, but also a man of great vision. But just as the pastor began his prayer, the large doors at the back of the hall creaked open. A gust of wind swept through, making the candles flicker wildly. Heads turned, whispers grew louder, and then there was silence. A figure stepped into the doorway, dressed in a crisp white suit, his face calm, his eyes sharp. Benjamin Carter, alive. Gasps echoed. Vanessa's hand flew to her mouth. Olivia dropped her handkerchief. Henry's phone slipped from his grip. The room was frozen. Good afternoon. Benjamin's voice cut through the silence like a blade. I heard you were praying for my soul. Chaos erupted. Guests stumbled back, some whispering of miracles, others of ghosts. Vanessa backed away, her face pale. Benjamin, you're alive, he said, taking another step forward. Alive and disappointed. Benjamin reached into his pocket, pulling out a small remote. With a click, the large portrait of him at the front of the hall shifted, revealing a hidden projector screen. Footage began to play, Vanessa laughing with William Turner, her secret lover. Olivia listing Benjamin's belongings online. Henry negotiating for the company takeover. The room was silent except for the cold, sharp voice of Benjamin narrating. This is my family, he said. This is how they honored my memory. Vanessa dropped to her knees. Benjamin, please. It's not what it looks like. Really? Benjamin's gaze was icy. You couldn't wait a day. He turned to the crowd. This is why I faked my death. To see who would stand by me and who would betray me. The guests were stunned. The whispers turned to outrage. Some moved away from Vanessa, Olivia, and Henry as if they carried a plague. But let me be clear, Benjamin continued. I will not be a ghost in my own house. As of today, my will has been changed. Everything I own, the Carter estate, the company, the investments, they now belong to someone who has shown me true loyalty. A door opened, and a young man stepped forward. Daniel Brooks. This is Daniel, Benjamin announced. My true heir. The room exploded with gasps. Vanessa screamed. Olivia fainted. Henry lunged forward. You can't do this. This is our legacy. Your legacy was built on lies, Benjamin replied calmly. And now it's over. Benjamin turned and walked away, his footsteps steady, leaving behind a room of shattered illusions and a family exposed for who they truly were. The grand halls of the Carter estate, once a symbol of power and luxury, now felt like a fortress Daniel Brooks had never imagined stepping into. The marble floors gleamed under the golden chandelier lights, and the quiet hum of distant whispers filled the air. But for Daniel, it was all a blur. Just days ago, he was a young man working odd jobs, struggling to make ends meet. And now, he was the legal heir to one of the largest empires in Brooksville. Yet the weight of this inheritance felt like a burden. As Daniel walked down the grand hallway, the staff bowed slightly, their eyes filled with curiosity and judgment. Some whispered, others watched him with doubt. He could feel the tension, the quiet resentment. He wasn't one of them, not yet. In the grand dining room, a large oak table stretched across the room, adorned with silverware and delicate china. Daniel sat at the head, his fingers trembling slightly. His grandmother, Mrs. Grace Williams, smiled gently beside him. "Remember, Daniel," she whispered, "humility is strength." But humility wasn't what the world around him respected. Not the board members who questioned his abilities, not the staff who whispered behind his back, and certainly not the family members of Benjamin Carter, who had lost everything. That night, as the mansion grew quiet, Daniel sat alone in the study, a glass of water untouched before him. His mind raced. Could he really lead this empire? Was he just a puppet in a grand scheme he didn't understand? Suddenly, a knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Samuel Johnson, Benjamin's loyal driver and now Daniel's trusted advisor, stepped in. "Sir, there are a few board members requesting a meeting with you tomorrow." Daniel's chest tightened. "Already? But I'm not ready." Samuel smiled kindly. "They're not testing your knowledge, Daniel. They're testing your resolve." The next morning, Daniel walked into the boardroom. 12 men in suits stared back at him, their faces stern, their eyes critical. "Mr. Brooks," one of them began, adjusting his glasses, "we respect Mr. Carter's decision, but we have to ensure that his empire is in capable hands. Can you assure us of that?" Daniel hesitated, but then he remembered his grandmother's words, "Humility is strength." "I won't pretend to know everything," Daniel began, his voice steady. "But I know loyalty. I know hard work. And I know that this empire wasn't built by a man who feared challenges." The room fell silent. Another board member leaned forward. "We shall see, Mr. Brooks." Days turned into weeks. Daniel's life became a whirlwind of meetings, decisions, and whispered criticisms. Some employees tested his patience, others sought to manipulate him. But each night, he returned to the quiet study, where his grandmother's gentle voice reminded him of his values. One evening, as Daniel was reviewing company reports, he noticed something strange. A series of unauthorized transactions, large sums, being diverted to an unknown account. "Samuel!" Daniel called, and within moments, the loyal advisor appeared. "Sir, look at this," Daniel pointed to the report. "Someone is stealing from the company." Samuel's face darkened. "This is serious." "We need to investigate." The next few days were tense. Daniel quietly coordinated with Samuel, tracking the transactions, tracing the source, and finally, it led them to a familiar name, Henry Carter. Benjamin's own son, who had lost everything after his father's return, was now trying to claw back wealth through deception. But Daniel didn't confront him immediately. Instead, he prepared. He gathered evidence, spoke with the legal team, and waited for the right moment. On a crisp morning, Daniel called a board meeting. Henry walked in, unaware of what awaited him. "Henry Carter." Daniel's voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. "Would you care to explain these transactions?" Henry's face paled. I don't know what you're talking about." "Then let me help you remember," Daniel said, clicking a button on the screen. The evidence displayed for everyone to see. Henry's arrogance crumbled. "Please, I had nothing left." Daniel stood, his voice steady. "Loyalty is not about wealth, Henry. It's about character, and you've lost both." Henry was escorted out, his betrayal clear for all to see. And for the first time, the board members looked at Daniel with a newfound respect. That night, as Daniel stood on the balcony of the Carter estate, overlooking the city lights, Samuel joined him. "You did well, sir," Samuel said. "I did what was right," Daniel replied, a hint of sadness in his voice. "But I wonder if I'm becoming the very thing I feared." Samuel shook his head. "No, sir. You're becoming a leader, Vanessa Carter sat in a dimly lit room of a cheap motel, her fingers trembling around a cheap plastic cup filled with watered-down whiskey. The room smelled of damp carpet and stale air, a far cry from the luxury she once flaunted at the Carter estate. Her once flawless makeup was smeared, and her perfectly styled hair hung limp around her shoulders. She stared at the flickering TV screen, but the words blurred. Every channel seemed to speak Benjamin's name, Daniel's name, Carter estate, the new leadership, the young man who had defied all odds. Her hands clenched the cup tighter, the thin plastic bending. It wasn't supposed to be like this. She had everything planned. The estate, the fortune, the company, everything that should have been hers. But instead, it had all slipped through her fingers like sand. Vanessa's phone buzzed on the bedside table. A text from Marcus Reed, the hacker she had paid. Failed. They found the source. I'm done. Her jaw clenched. That coward, that useless coward, he promised her that Daniel's reputation would be destroyed, that the media would turn against him, that the board would see him as a fraud. But instead, Daniel had not only survived the scandal, he had come out stronger. She grabbed her purse, counting the few bills left. This was all she had now. Her accounts were frozen, her credit cards were rejected. Even her so-called friends had turned away. No one wanted to be associated with the fallen queen. Her mind raced. Maybe there was still a way. Maybe she could plead with Benjamino. He hated her now. Maybe Daniel could be manipulated. No, he was too strong now, and she was the one exposed. Tears stung her eyes. From the mistress of a grand estate to a forgotten woman in a motel. How had it all crumbled so fast? There was a knock at the door. Vanessa's heart skipped. Was it the police? Debt collectors? One of Benjamin's men? She hesitated, then slowly opened the door. It was Olivia. "Mom!" Olivia's voice was a whisper. She looked just as broken, her clothes wrinkled, her face pale. "I don't know where else to go." Vanessa pulled her daughter inside, closing the door quickly. "They threw me out too. Henry, he took everything." A bitter laugh escaped Vanessa's lips. "Of course he did. They're all traitors." "Mom, what do we do?" Olivia's voice cracked. Vanessa looked at her daughter, the one person who had once represented her future, now as lost as she was. "We survive, Olivia. We survive." But even as she spoke, Vanessa knew she wasn't surviving. She was falling. 2 weeks later, Vanessa's name was nothing more than a whisper. The Carter estate thrived under Daniel's leadership, and Benjamin was once again a respected figure. No one spoke of the fallen widow who had tried to destroy it all. Vanessa's final attempt at revenge had become her final defeat. Daniel Brooks stood in the grand conference room of the Carter estate, the sunlight streaming through the tall glass windows, casting a golden glow across the marble floors. He stood at the head of a long, polished mahogany table, facing the stern, skeptical faces of the board members. These were men who had built their careers under Benjamin Carter, men who saw Daniel as nothing more than a charity case, a poor boy plucked from obscurity. Whispers rustled like leaves around the table as they exchanged doubtful glances. "Gentlemen," Daniel began, his voice steady, though his hands were clenched behind his back. "I understand your concerns. I am not Benjamin Carter, but I stand here today not because of luck, but because I earned it." A scoff came from Mr. Caldwell, the head of finance. "Earned it? You were handed a kingdom, boy. A throne you have no idea how to rule." Daniel smiled calmly. "Then let me prove otherwise." He pressed a button on the remote in his hand, and the large screen behind him flickered to life, displaying detailed financial reports, growth projections, and a comprehensive plan for the future of Carter Enterprises. "This is my vision," Daniel continued. "Sustainable growth, ethical leadership, and innovation. We will not just maintain our empire, We will expand it. Murmurs softened, some board members leaning forward, their interest piqued. But Mr.
Caldwell shook his head. Bold words, but where is the experience?
Where are the connections?
Right here, a voice echoed from the back. The doors opened, and Benjamin Carter himself walked in, his presence commanding the room. Gasps filled the air.
This young man, Benjamin declared, his voice strong, has proven his loyalty, integrity, and vision. I have built this empire with these values, and I trust him to lead it with the same. The boardroom fell silent. One by one, the skeptical faces softened. Some nodded, others remained silent, but the challenge had been met. Any further doubts? Benjamin asked, his gaze piercing through the room. None, Mr. Caldwell muttered, lowering his gaze. Daniel felt a surge of relief, but he maintained his composure. Thank you, Mr.
Carter. Thank you all.
As the board members dispersed, Benjamin placed a firm hand on Daniel's shoulder. Remember, Daniel, leadership isn't just about power. It's about responsibility. Daniel nodded, his heart pounding with a mix of pride and resolve. But as he turned to leave, he caught a glimpse of someone in the hallway, a figure watching with cold, calculating eyes. Marcus Reed, Vanessa's ally. The game wasn't over yet. Vanessa Carter sat in the cold, dimly lit room of a rundown apartment, her once perfectly manicured nails now chipped and broken. Her designer dresses had been replaced with thrift store clothes, and the diamond earrings she once flaunted were long gone, sold for a few $100s just to pay the rent. Her phone buzzed on the cracked table beside her, another notification from the credit card company overdraft. Again. Vanessa's fingers trembled as she stared at the screen. Just months ago, she had been the queen of the Carter estate, hosting lavish parties, surrounded by luxury. Now she was nothing more than a shadow of herself. This can't be happening, she whispered, tossing the phone aside. It can't end like this. But it had. After Benjamin's return, everything unraveled. The hidden cameras exposed her betrayal, and her once loving husband became a force of judgment she couldn't escape. The estate lawyers, at Benjamin's command, froze her accounts, sold her jewelry, and repossessed her car. Her so-called friends vanished, not a single one answering her calls. The luxury stores she used to frequent refused her credit, and even the gossip magazines stopped mentioning her. Vanessa tried to fight back. She went to the family lawyer, demanding her share, but Benjamin had been thorough. The prenuptial agreement she had once laughed at now stood as an iron wall, protecting Benjamin's wealth from her. Mrs. Carter, the lawyer had said, barely hiding his disdain, your signature is right here. You have no claim. In desperation, Vanessa reached out to William Turner, her former lover, who had promised her a new life. But he had already moved on, whispering empty words to another wealthy widow, his promises now as worthless as her credit. With nowhere else to turn, she tried to contact her children, Olivia and Henry, but they wanted nothing to do with her. Olivia had blocked her number. Henry's last text was a single line. You ruined everything. Vanessa's tears dried up long ago. Now there was only anger, a cold, seething rage burning inside her. She blamed everyone, Benjamin for being so ruthless, Daniel for taking everything, and the world for abandoning her. The room grew darker as the evening approached. Rain tapped against the broken window, a soft, mocking rhythm. Vanessa stared at her reflection in the dusty mirror. A pale, hollow face stared back. The elegance, the pride, the beauty all gone. A sudden knock at the door shattered the silence. Vanessa's heart raced. She opened it to find the landlord, an impatient man with a stained shirt. Rent's due, he grumbled. I just need a few more days, Vanessa stammered. No more days, lady. Either pay up or you're out. The door slammed shut. Vanessa sank to the floor, her hands covering her face. This was it. The end. She thought about calling Benjamin, begging for forgiveness, but pride wouldn't allow it. She thought about Daniel, the boy she once mocked, now living in the luxury she had lost. Hatred bubbled up again. But beneath the anger was fear, a deep, unending fear of being nothing. No money, no friends, no family. Her gaze fell to the small drawer beside the bed. A single pill bottle sat inside something she had kept from the estate's medicine cabinet, a cruel reminder of the life she once had. Tears filled her eyes as she reached for it, but then her phone buzzed again. A text message. Unknown number. You still have one chance to make things right. Vanessa's heart pounded. Was this a cruel joke, or a final chance at redemption? Her fingers trembled as she typed back, "Who is this?" The reply was instant. "Meet me at the old cafe by Main Street. Midnight." She hesitated, fear mixing with a faint spark of hope. She had nothing left to lose. As the rain poured outside, Vanessa grabbed her worn coat, stuffed her phone into her pocket, and stepped out into the darkness, chasing the last glimmer of hope she had left. The grand hall of the Carter estate was bathed in golden light as the afternoon sun poured through the towering glass windows. Daniel Brooks stood at the head of a long, polished mahogany table facing the board members of the Carter Corporation. They stared back, a mix of skepticism, curiosity, and grudging respect in their eyes. Just a few months ago, Daniel was nothing more than a young man struggling to make ends meet. Now, he stood here not by chance, but by resilience and trust. As the murmurs in the room quieted, one of the senior board members, Mr. Caldwell, cleared his throat. "Mr. Brooks," Caldwell began, his voice steady but laced with doubt, "many of us still wonder if a young man with no corporate background can truly lead an empire like Carter Corporation." Daniel met his gaze without flinching. "I understand your concerns," he began, his voice calm but firm. "I may not have decades of corporate experience, but I have something far more valuable: loyalty, integrity, and a vision for this company that goes beyond profit." A few skeptical murmurs echoed, but Daniel continued. "When Mr. Benjamin Carter entrusted me with this responsibility, it was not because of my background. It was because he saw my character. He knew I would put the well-being of this company and its people above all else." Mr. Caldwell leaned back, crossing his arms. "And what exactly is your vision for Carter Corporation?" "Sustainability, innovation, and community," Daniel responded without hesitation. "We will not just be another corporation hungry for profits. We will be a company that invests in people, supports our communities, and leads with integrity." Another board member, Mrs. Hathaway, raised an eyebrow. "Ambitious words, Mr. Brooks. But can you deliver?" Daniel smiled slightly. "Test me." Silence settled over the room. Then, to everyone's surprise, the large double doors at the back of the hall swung open, and Benjamin Carter himself stepped in, his presence still commanding despite the years. "He already has," Benjamin announced, his voice echoing through the room. "Daniel has not only saved this company from internal corruption, but he has also brought new investors and secured major partnerships." The room erupted in whispers. Some were shocked, others impressed. Benjamin continued, "I may have built this empire, but it is Daniel who will take it to new heights." One by one, the board members stood, offering their hands to Daniel. Skepticism faded, replaced by cautious respect. Later that evening, as the sun set over the Carter estate, Daniel stood on the balcony, the cool breeze brushing against his face. Benjamin joined him, his voice calm and proud. "You did well, Daniel." "I had your support," Daniel replied. "No," Benjamin corrected. "You had your own strength. Never forget that." Below, the estate's lights began to flicker on, a symbol of a new era. And at that moment, Daniel knew he was no longer just a poor boy trying to survive. He was a leader, a man who had earned his place at the top. In life, True character is revealed not in moments of comfort, but in times of adversity. Daniel Brooks's journey at the Carter estate is a powerful reminder of this truth. As a young man of humble beginnings, Daniel found himself surrounded by wealth and power, but also by greed, betrayal, and false loyalty. Despite facing rejection, betrayal, and doubt, Daniel did not let bitterness consume him. Instead, he embraced resilience, remained true to his values, and proved his worth through honesty, kindness, and perseverance. When others around him were blinded by greed, Daniel focused on learning, growing, and leading with integrity. His story is a lesson for all of us. True wealth is measured not in money, but in character. Adversity is not a curse, it is a teacher. Those who betray us only reveal their true nature, while those who stand by us become our true family. In the end, Daniel chose forgiveness over revenge, growth over bitterness, and integrity over deceit. His journey reminds us that no matter our age, it is never too late to rise above life's challenges with dignity and strength.